A terrifying incident took place in Jackson County's peaceful rural areas on October 31, 1982. 24-year-old Clifford Smith was shot and killed. He was a devoted Seymour City civil servant and a U.S. Army veteran with an honorary position for his nation. For decades, this mystery persisted. Joyce Smith, Clifford's wife, reported him missing on November 4th, a few days after he was last seen on Halloween. Sadly, two animal trappers found his body in December of that year, close to Rockford, just north of Seymour, along the serene White River. It was a depressing sight. Officials later confirmed that Clifford had been shot in the head. Who could have carried out such a horrific deed? And why did it take this cold case more than 40 years to solve? With 46,428 residents as of 2020, Jackson County, Indiana, is a historically significant area. In 1886, the Reno Gang committed the first train robbery in American history there. The Medora Covered Bridge, the second longest three-span covered bridge in the world, is another reason for the county's fame. A historical landmark and source of community pride, the amalgamation of historical occurrences and sites molds Jackson County's identity, mirroring a society that cherishes its history. In this context, the Clifford Smith cold case, a protracted enigma in the county, was ultimately resolved in 2023. Born on October 1st, 1958, Clifford Smith is a man whose life story is still somewhat unknown. The fact that his parents' names and his own goals are not well known lends an air of mystery to his life narrative. Clifford's family was left behind as he was buried in Scipio Cemetery following his sudden death. He was the stepfather of Jennifer Anderson and the husband of Joyce Anderson, Ronald Anderson's sister. His family network was further expanded by his 5 brothers, Leonard Smith of Indianapolis and Lonnie, Ronnie, Anthony, and Timothy Smith of Columbus. He also had a sister who lived in Indianapolis, Tamara Gibbs. Clifford demonstrated his commitment to both local and national commitments while working for Seymour City. He also honored his country as a U.S. veteran. Despite being tragically cut short, Clifford's life was deeply ingrained in his family and community, presenting a picture of a man who was a devoted civil servant as well as a loved family member. Even though his story is not fully recorded in the public domain, people who knew him do recall it, and it is woven into the greater fabric of the community he served. A haunting scene was discovered by 2 animal trappers, Scott Bridgewater and Randy Marshall, on the evening of December 1, 1982, at approximately 8:00 p.m., while they were traveling through the bayou near the White River, which is situated north of the Rockford area. The revelation was unsettling. In a remote area, roughly half a mile east of County Road 700 East and just south of County Road 800 North, they discovered a body floating in a small pool of water. This remote area could only be reached by following a dirt path that wound between fields. It led to a small area of woods that was known to flood frequently because it was close to the White River. They found a body floating face up, wearing brown boots, a black t-shirt, and blue jeans. The skin had turned a grayish color, suggesting slight decomposition, and the top part of the head and an area by the ear were missing. These were unsettling observations. Seymour and the Indiana State Police were promptly notified of the horrific finding by the trappers. The ISP at the time had a police station in Seymour, and its officers arrived on the scene without delay. After some investigation, a billfold was found in the deceased's pants pocket. Inside was an identity card that verified Clifford Smith, who was born on October 1st, 1958, was the person buried there. A graphic detail uncovered during the autopsy was that the shotgun blast had caused extensive brain damage, which was the reason for the death. Multiple pieces of buckshot were discovered in the victim's head. The gun appeared to have been fired with the barrel inside the mouth based on its positioning, a detail that only added to the enigma surrounding Clifford's death. After more research, it was discovered that Clifford's wife, Joyce Smith, had reported him missing to the Seymour Police Department on November 4, 1982. This finding not only resolved the mystery surrounding his disappearance but also started a new phase in the inquiry into his untimely demise. Clifford's death and the circumstances surrounding it painted a dark picture of his last moments, raising many unanswered questions about what caused such a violent end. The Indiana State Police detectives began a thorough investigation to solve Clifford Smith's death mystery after finding his body in a grim manner. Their investigation quickly narrowed down to two people who were intimately connected to Clifford: Joyce, his wife, and Ronald Anderson, her brother. Their close relationship with Clifford drove this direction of the investigation and naturally led to inquiries about their possible role in the case. When confronted with the accusations, Joyce and Ronald vehemently denied any role in Clifford's tragic death. The detectives continued to search for the truth in spite of their denials. They investigate further, following up on every lead they can find and closely examining any information that might provide insight into Clifford's death circumstances. But they came to a dead end in their never-ending quest for justice. None of the leads they pursued or paths they took resulted in a significant development in the case. No one was arrested, and no hard evidence linking any suspects was discovered. The investigation conducted by the Indiana State Police detectives took a significant turn as they continued their tenacious quest to unravel the mystery surrounding Clifford Smith's cruel death. The pivotal moment occurred when Clifford's spouse, Joyce Smith, chose to speak with the police and provide a statement that fundamentally altered the course of the case. Joyce Anderson's testimony on December 10, 1982, revealed a complicated and unsettling story and implicated her brother, Ronald Anderson, in a crime. According to Joyce, everything happened on October 30, 1982, around 10 o'clock at night. When Ronald and Clifford arrived with stolen goods, she was at Tim and Pat Lee's house at 112 East 13th Street in Seymour. Joyce distanced herself from the stolen goods because she did not want to be associated with them. Ronald went to fetch Tim and Pat, but he did not come back with Pat until about 11 o'clock p.m. At this point, Joyce, Clifford, Ronald, and Pat were all at the Lee residence. Joyce recalled that Clifford, who was intoxicated, had asked her to go home with him, but she had declined. She screamed out that she was so angry that she hoped something horrible would happen to him. Clifford responded with a disturbing statement about ending his own life. In the heat of the moment, Ronald vented his anger at Clifford, accusing him of being responsible for the break-in and the subsequent possession of stolen goods. Additionally, Ronald stated that Clifford had physically mistreated him all day. Joyce related the terrifying series of events in which Ronald took Tim's pump-action shotgun and loaded it with 4 red shells. Then Ronald menacingly threatened Joyce's life and urged her to remain silent about the gun. Ronald started acting erratically, demanding that Clifford go with him. Clifford hit Ronald during the ensuing altercation and then left the house. Joyce saw that Ronald went outside and honked a car horn after Clifford. Later, Joyce was driven by Pat to her mother's house, where she saw Ronald show up later that evening. When Ronald asked to be dropped off close to the Rocks Say skating rink the following morning, he was acting suspiciously. He had also taken Joyce's car keys and was using them to get some stolen items out of her vehicle. The suspicion that Ronald was involved in Clifford's death increased when he told Joyce not to use the car for a few days after giving her the keys back. While at Pat's house, Joyce noticed the shotgun was back where it belonged. When questioned, Ronald gave contradictory accounts of the previous night's events while maintaining his threat to Joyce to keep quiet about the gun. Ronald's contradictory and evolving statements were revealed during the investigation by ISP detective Jim Levins. Ronald admitted to several actions, including wiping off the shotgun shells and admitting that the weapon used was a shotgun rather than a .22 caliber rifle. He also admitted to buying acid on the day of the murder. Ronald's stories differed greatly, initially blaming Tim Lee for Clifford's death, then blaming 2 men armed with long guns. He later stated that Clifford was kidnapped and shot near the Bayou in Rockford by Greg Howard, a man he met at a park, and another man. Ronald gave a detailed account of the events leading up to Clifford's death in an interview on April 13, 1982. He claimed that after an argument with Greg, Clifford was shot with a shotgun as he tried to flee. Ronald admitted to cleaning the blood from the shotgun and returning it to its original location, as well as throwing empty shells into the Rockford Dam in White River. On August 13, 2014, the case took a new turn when Roger Drew II, an ISP detective, revisited it with George Weir, a pathologist, and Roger Wheeler, the Jackson County coroner. It was found that Clifford's 1982 death certificate was still pending, and that coroner Keith Burkholder's verdict at the time indicated that Clifford had self-inflicted gunshot wounds. The investigation's zeal faded with time. The case eventually went cold due to a lack of fresh evidence or leads. It gradually faded into the background. A major breakthrough in the decades-long unsolved Clifford Smith cold case occurred in 2015. When Detective Kit Main took up the case on September 21st, the investigation was rekindled with new eyes and a redoubled commitment. Jennifer Rodriguez, a family member, provided a critical tip on July 29, 2016, mentioning a jacket found in an attic that was connected to the suspected murderous night. Following up on this lead, Jennifer was interviewed by Detective Main and Joyce Smith, now known as Joyce Dreyer, on August 2, 2016. This information fueled the investigation, prompting a search of the attic on August 15, 2016 in search of evidence. Unfortunately, this search produced no significant results. Joyce was re-interviewed on October 26 and reiterated earlier facts while adding an important detail. She claimed that on the night Clifford vanished, her brother, Ronald Anderson, wore his military jacket, which she never saw again after that night. Joyce recalled hearing Ronald tell their mother that he had left the jacket at a party, which piqued investigators' interest given its potential connection to the crime. During this time, Detective Main met with coroner Roger Wheeler and pathologist Whitler to discuss the case. On August 26, 2016, Ronald Anderson and his wife, Tammy, were interviewed again. An important update was added to autopsy on August 31, 2021. Dr. Whitler re-examined the case and concluded that Clifford's death was a murder. This was a watershed moment because all official documentation now reflected the new conclusion. During these interactions, Ronald's story began to change. He acknowledged that the shotgun that killed Clifford was the same one that he had loaded and taken from Tim's home. Ronald acknowledged that he had loaded the shotgun with the intention of scaring Clifford out of the house because he was angry with him. According to him, Clifford was shot by Greg Howard approximately 5 feet away, which is how Clifford died. Ronald also talked about going back to the scene of the murder to gather spent shotgun shells, which he threw into the river to obliterate any evidence. On November 7, 2017, Tammy Anderson disclosed that her spouse, Ronald, informed her that the gunman was Lonnie Smith, Clifford's brother. On February 9, 2018, Ronald refuted this claim, claiming to have been present when Clifford was killed and providing details about the events leading up to the lethal shooting. He told how he and Clifford met Lonnie and Greg at a park when they were both high on drugs. After a disagreement between Clifford and Greg, Clifford was shot in the left side of the head by Greg. Clifford's final death certificate, which was obtained on November 8, 2016, listed the cause of death as a homicidal shotgun blast to the head, causing extensive brain damage. This formal acknowledgement was a crucial turning point in the case. Ronald's accounts over the years were riddled with contradictions and alterations, revealing a convoluted web of dishonesty and jumbled memories that were probably made worse by his acknowledged drug use. He accused Tim Lee at first, then moved on to other unnamed men, and finally accused Greg Howard and Lonnie Smith in various contexts. Detective Main got in touch with Ronald and Tammy Anderson on June 3, 2021, in an effort to wrap up the case. Ronald had earlier said he would be happy to point out the precise spot where Clifford was killed, which was close to the bayou. Ronald was scheduled to lead Detective Main and Sergeant Roger Drew to the crime scene on June 4, 2021. But Ronald told the detectives he was too nervous to help and that he did not want to get any more involved when they got to his house. This concluded the conversation with Ronald Anderson. The investigation continued in spite of the numerous detours and turns in his story, assembling the disparate and contradictory accounts. Probable cause was established based on the gathered evidence and testimonies, leading to the conclusion that Ronald J. Anderson killed Clifford Anderson. A complex figure in the Clifford Smith cold case is Ronald Jack Anderson, who was born in 1962. Ronald, also going by the moniker Space Monkey, was the brother of Clifford Smith's wife, Joyce Smith. It is unknown what his parents' names are or where he was born. Ronald's life illustrates a man enmeshed in a web of his own making, intertwined with personal hardships and a criminal trajectory. His relationship with his sister Joyce and his participation in Clifford's life and final demise point to a tumultuous blend of emotional upheaval and family dynamics. It is not fully known how much Ronald learned about his criminal past or about his early habits, but his part in the sad circumstances surrounding Clifford Smith's passing paints a picture of a troubled, possibly deeply conflicted man. The mystery surrounding his life before and after this well-known case is further compounded by the lack of information regarding his marriage and his children. Many questions about Ronald's deeper character and the life he led beyond what the public has seen remain unanswered in his tragic crime-marred story. Exactly 41 years to the day after Clifford Smith was killed, on October 31, 2023, Ronald J. Anderson, now 61 years old, was taken into custody. A pivotal moment in the long-running Clifford Smith cold case. The Indiana State Police detectives in Seymour who apprehended Anderson did so without any problems. Ronald Anderson was taken to the Jackson County Jail after his arrest and is currently being held without bond. This breakthrough provided much-needed progress in a case that had been under investigation for more than 40 years. A pre-trial conference has been set for December 12, 2023, at the Jackson County Circuit Court, as part of Anderson's legal proceedings. It is decided that Judge Richard Pointer will handle the case. Setting the stage for the trial and choosing the direction of the legal arguments and evidence will be accomplished in large part during this pre-trial conference. The jury trial is scheduled to begin at 8:30 a.m. on April 16, 2024, signifying a crucial day in the quest for Clifford Smith's justice. It is expected that this trial will be a major event in the neighborhood, shedding light on details of a case that has plagued the area for years. In a case that has been long shrouded in mystery and tragedy, Jackson County's eyes, as well as those who have followed this case over the years, will be on trial seeking justice and closure. A family that had been struggling with uncertainty and grief for more than 40 years finally felt some closure with the Clifford Smith cold case arrest. The Indiana State Police's Public Information Officer, Sergeant Stephen Wheels, considered this momentous occasion and noted the great relief it provided the Clifford family. More than just providing closure for one family, this Clifford Smith case breakthrough serves as a ray of hope for other families who are still looking for answers in unsolved cases. Indiana State Police worked hard to bring peace to more families who have been waiting for justice by working towards similar resolutions to other unresolved cases. Clifford's brother, Leonard Smith, conveyed the relief and long-held belief of his family at the news.
Hotel cleaning personnel at the Windsor Motel in Arizona found 45-year-old Canadian Barbara Callow dead on April 5, 2005. Barbara had come to Lake Havasu City from Canada specifically to witness the blooming desert wildflowers. Barbara was last seen alive at approximately 8:40 p.m. When the hotel staff saw her, it was the night before. Investigative efforts were launched to find the real reason behind Barbara Callow's death. Nearly 20 years later, these efforts paid off when the culprit was identified, thanks to developments in DNA technology. Two important questions remain as we delve deeper into this mystery. Since Barbara Callow was only a visitor from another country, who could have been the murderer? What possible reason might have existed for this horrible act? Do follow along to learn more about this tragic tale. This case takes place near the California-Arizona border in Lake Havasu City, which is located on the lake's eastern shore. Almost 1 million people visit this well-liked location each year. In addition to offering a perfect climate, a variety of dining options, and lodging, it is well known for its historic London Bridge, crystal clear lake, friendly community, plenty of sunshine, and numerous annual events. Generally speaking, the city has a lower crime rate than the state of Arizona. The killing of Barbara, however, shocked the neighborhood on April 5, 2005. It was an eerie incident that was unusual for the otherwise tranquil area. Barbara Irene Callow was born in 1960, the parents Brigitte Callow and Werner Callow in Toronto, Canada. Additionally, she had a younger brother named Peter, to whom she had a close bond. Her early years were spent in Toronto. Barbara demonstrated exceptional intelligence and a distinct career goal from a very young age. She continued her studies at the Veterinary College of the University of Guelph, where she graduated with a master's degree. Barbara's passion for knowledge was evident when she decided to pursue a career as a researcher after completing her studies. Her talents were acknowledged by the Canadian federal government in 1992 when they hired her to work as a meat inspector. She eventually advanced to a position in the science branch where she gave insightful advice on issues pertaining to animal health after making the switch to veterinary biologics over the years. Her co-workers respected her for being a bright, daring, and self-starting person. Barbara was a multifaceted individual who enjoyed gardening, cycling, arts, and bird watching when she was not at work. She was also deeply passionate about traveling. Barbara's bright future, however, was tragically cut short on March 25, 2005, when she left Ottawa for a vacation. Barbara, then 45, had decided to take a solo vacation in 2005. Seeing the enchanting bloom of desert wildflowers in the heart of Arizona was the main purpose of her plan. On March 25, she departed from her Ottawa residence and set out on her quest. Her initial destination was British Columbia, and she proceeded to Las Vegas, Nevada from there. On March 26, she rented a car and set out on her journey. After that, Barbara took a car to Yuma, Arizona, and spent a day exploring the area. She then took a car to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, her ultimate destination, eager to carry on exploring. She arrived at the Windsor Inn Motel on April 2nd, intending to use her room as a cozy base for day trips into the breathtaking Arizona scenery. Barbara's journey was an adventure full of hope and the promise of new experiences, not just a quest to see wildflowers. However, this promising adventure would soon take an unexpected turn. The motel staff last saw Barbara on April 4, 2005, at approximately 8:40 p.m. She called her mother, Bridget, in Toronto later that evening to let her know she would be staying an extra day in Lake Havasu before traveling to Las Vegas to catch her flight home. But when morning came, Barbara was nowhere to be seen at breakfast. Her absence worried the housekeepers, so they went to see how she was doing. They were shocked to find her dead body in the motel room. Without delay, they made a police call. Following the 911 call, police showed up quickly and went into Barbara's room. As soon as possible, the police searched the room and took the body for an autopsy. At the scene of the crime, investigators gathered potential suspect DNA evidence and preserved it for potential use in the future investigation. Her death was later determined by an autopsy to be asphyxiation, caused by being smothered by a pillow. The fact that her room was empty of her wallet, credit card, phone, identification, and the very pillow that was thought to have been used in her murder was another unsettling detail. Also, the fact that the rental car she had driven was also stolen and was eventually discovered abandoned 2 days later along Interstate 15 in the Mojave Desert of California added to the mystery. According to Lake Havasu Police, Lieutenant Joe Archie, Barbara might have confronted someone trying to break into her rental car. Though it is more likely that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, it is still possible that she knew the person. The car appeared to be the main attraction in what appears to be a crime of opportunity, but for some reason, something happened that turned this into something ugly. When her brother learned of Barbara's terrible demise, he immediately took a plane from Toronto to Lake Havasu City to retrieve her remains. In spite of their extreme shock and distress over the unexpected and perplexing circumstances surrounding Barbara's death, the local community's investigators were motivated to see justice served. The fact that violent incidents were uncommon in Lake Havasu City was also mentioned by Charlie Canson, the city spokesperson at the time. Despite early efforts, the case was ultimately abandoned due to a dearth of convincing evidence and slow progress in DNA technology. In 2018, a ray of hope appeared for Barbara's family after years of uncertainty and increasing suffering. The Criminal Investigations Unit and Cold Case Squad of the Lake Havasu Police Department made the decision to reopen the case. They went over the evidence again, including the DNA that was taken at the scene of the crime in 2005. It was a major breakthrough when they finally identified a suspect. Barbara's tragic death was suspected to have been caused by 60-year-old Stacy Childs. This was a significant step toward bringing Barbara Callow and her bereaved family justice. Born in Santa Cruz, California in 1962, Stacy Childs has an alarming record of legal run-ins. Although not much is known about his parents or early years, his criminal history says a lot. He had previously been found guilty in California of a number of charges before there was any reason for suspicion. His list of crimes included a 2012 felony conviction for receiving stolen property, a 2005 felony conviction for eluding a peace officer, a 2004 felony conviction for false imprisonment, and a 2018 misdemeanor for threatening to injure someone. He received sentences of more than 2.5 years in San Quentin State Prison for the last 2 counts. Childs was immediately taken into custody on April 26, 2022, following his identification as the murder suspect in Barbara's demise. Childs' trial got underway pretty quickly. He was originally accused of second-degree murder after his arrest. During the trial, Amanda Clairhout, the deputy county attorney, disclosed that there was a missing pillow and foam cord from room 139 of the motel where Barbara had lodged. She also mentioned that a medical examiner report noted significant evidence including the laceration to Callow's cheek, bruising around her neck, and ligature marks on her feet. A re-examination of DNA evidence taken from Childs in 2008 and under the victim's fingernails in 2005 marked a turning point in the case. The choice to prosecute Childs for the crime was made in 2022 after this analysis. Paul Aman, Childs' defense lawyer, countered that his client had voluntarily provided a DNA sample and had assisted with the police investigation. Childs, according to Aman, angrily denied having anything to do with Barbara's murder, even though the jury deliberated for more than 4 hours over the course of 2 days during the trial. They eventually told Judge Derek Carlisle that they were unable to reach a unanimous decision. Judge Carlisle then ruled that the trial was a mistrial and released the jury to continue their deliberations. Amanda Clairhout, the deputy county attorney, declared she intended to retry Childs after the mistrial. But the judge stepped in and ordered a quibble verdict, which allowed Childs to be released from the adult detention facility. Ultimately, Stacy Childs was freed from detention. Though his future remained uncertain, he continued to deny any involvement in Barbara's murder. For her family, the loss of the free-spirited Barbara remains a great burden. Her neighbors and friends were still missing the compassionate person she was when she was not around. Even after Childs was found not guilty, there are unanswered questions regarding who might have killed her and how the DNA evidence connected to Childs. This case is shrouded in uncertainty, so the Callow family is left searching for answers. Those who knew Barbara recall her as independent, adventurous, and full of life. They also recall her as having a strong desire to travel and take in the beauty of the world. Her mother can still clearly recall the day of the trip. She said she claimed to have taken a trip to see the blooming cacti and white flowers. California was supposed to have an incredible year for bloom because of the rain. Her neighbor recalled her saying she just wanted to go for a rest and just be quiet. She had no one with her, but she was a very friendly person. While the family was unable to have back their loved one, they believed that the police apprehending the perpetrator was a step toward healing. Despite his acquittal, the family continues to seek answers and mourns the untimely death of their beloved daughter. Barbara Callow's case is tragic and complicated. The outcome of the case is marked by uncertainty because it is still unresolved, and the truth about Barbara Callow's death remains elusive. However, such cases highlight the complexities and challenges of solving cold cases, as well as the importance of advances in forensic technology. It also emphasizes the importance of justice and closure for victims' families and the community. Let us now hear your thoughts on this case. What potential obstacles do you believe the prosecution and defense faced during Stacy Childs' trial? And how might these have influenced the outcome? Do you believe there is hope for a resolution in cold cases like Barbara Callow's in the future, given advancements in forensic technology and DNA analysis? Or are there constraints that could prevent justice from being served?